Hi, everybody. So, we're going to look at an example of role playing as outlined in this book. He gave us a little example. You're not the only game to do this. This might be an interesting exercise for you. Go get out that part of the game and it has this. Here's an example of role playing. And see what it teaches you, good and not so good. Okay, so let's start with background. Does this game give me an example of a background? How complicated is it? Is it like 5 pages? Well, it's actually not. It's like a couple paragraphs, and they're small paragraphs. So the first paragraph, Mara is an ex-Space Marine who went AWOL from the Ragnar's Hold Defense Force after a fight with her commanding officer, resulting in violence. She has a violent history. You know they want her, this particular group, so she's got to avoid them. She's got some combat skills, so we know some stuff about her right off the bat, right? She's hot-headed, okay, but handy to have around in a fight. She's ambidextrous and wields 2 blast pistols, so we know what she has for a weapon. We know she can use both hands equally. She's being played by Brandy, and we know who her player is. Then we have Valdan, is played by Chris, and is a male human who used to be an assistant to the ambassador of the Azamar Prelacy. Prelacy? I don't really know how to pronounce that word. But is alone now after their embassy was stormed by rebels. So we know something about him. Doesn't seem to have fight skills. Mason, please go outside all the way and close the door behind you. And so he doesn't have fight skills, and but he's going to have diplomacy skills. He's probably going to have a lot of other skills that have nothing to do with fighting. Okay, so polar opposites, but sometimes polar opposites in the skills makes a good team, right? He's probably, because he has diplomatic skills of some sort, he's probably a much even-headed person. Now, how do they know each other? Well, they give us one-liner about that. Mara rescued Valden from the chaos, and they've been friends ever since, working as freelance troubleshooters. That's it. That's how they know each other. You don't need an essay. They've been hired to enter the dangerous city of Ringwater on Noragar, the Nephron system, to find and recover Dr. Givens, a missing employee of Intercorp. The mission they're on, the adventure. So we've got their individual backgrounds, a few sentences about each of them. It's enough. It's enough right there. I could always have, people from Ringer's Hold Defensive Force looking for them. They're all, what about the Esmar? And they're missing diplomatic embassy employee. Is there going to be issues there? I mean, right there, you got stuff. So, you didn't spend 2 hours writing background. It's just enough to get you going. It can be fleshed out more and more by the ref and by the players, but enough to get you going. That's what I've been trying to get across. It's not that backgrounds are bad, just enough. And I think this is a good example of just enough to get the adventure going, man. Let's play. All right. Brandy. We've checked everywhere but the bars. I'm telling you, it's time Mara had a drink. Chris. Okay, fine. I wanted to avoid the bar. Every time we go into a bar, you end up getting us in a fight. Referee. The nearest bar you see is called Two Bullet Jane's. There are rows of hover cycles out in front. Brandy. Now we're talking. I smile. loosen on my pistols in their holsters, and walk right in ahead of Valden. Chris, I reluctantly follow. Somehow, I'm sure, we aren't going to be using much diplomacy here. Referee, Mara opens the door, and you are both greeted with the smell of sweat and leather. The place is dimly lit. You see 6 tables, mostly full of what look like burly bikers of various species. At one table are 3 Novim in Kroll Corp uniforms. Chris, that seems out of place. Mara, let's go check out the Novim. We've had trouble with Kroll Corp before. Brandy, you do that. I'm heading for the bar. Chris, fine. What are the Novim doing? Can I casually observe without looking, like I'm spying on them? I'm staying close to Mara if I can. Referee. I'm going to pause here after the referee. And after this little part here. Have Valden make a perception plus thief check. Since the Novum are a little busy, you can have a plus 10 bonus. Chris checks his character sheet. Adds 55 to the negative 10 for thief. Then adds plus 10 for his bonus. Rolls his 2 dice. 10-sided dice game. 48. I succeed. I succeeded. Referee then goes into explaining what how Chris succeeded. So we're going to stop right there. We'll do a little bit more, but we're going to stop right there. So, up until we hit the part where fine, that's fine. When Chris says fine, he's talking, you could call that as talking tomorrow. Right? But then he goes, what are the Novim doing? Can I see this? Blah, 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 blah. And they're all questions. They're all questions directed at the referee. And we have entered the interrogation phase of the role-playing game scenarios. Role-playing has stopped. We've hit a wall. It's like driving a car into the wall. Boom. Okay. And Chris needs info. He knows he needs info. Everyone's cognitive. They need info. And they're going to need info throughout the game. Obviously. But it's not being handled correctly. But why would it be handled correctly? Okay, I want you to keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. Then we get to what the referee does. If I'm the referee, I'm sitting here telling you all this game mechanic stuff, right? And of course, Chris then does his game mechanic stuff, does the math, blah, blah, blah. And then some dice are rolled, and we either have success or failure. Great game mechanics. But that's not what we want. It's not what we want. So let's talk about what we want. How could this be handled better? The first thing is, as the referee, always try to address the players when you want them role-playing in character by the characters' names. Players make character names the referee can pronounce. Yeah, I'm just saying. So I would have preferred the example here not to be the Brandy Chris thing, but rather the Mara Valden thing, and with just Chris and Brandy noted as the players of those characters. But that's like nitpicking. On the whole, the role playing was okay until you hit that question and answer session. I'm going to ask you a bunch of answers, referee. Now you tell me how to get questions. You tell me how to get the answers. You roll dice, so you're just going to tell me what. So we don't want that. So the first thing that I would change in this example is fine. I move closer towards the Novum so I can see and hear what they're doing. I'm trying to be casual about this so I don't stand out or am observed while I'm doing the observing. If I can, I'm going to try to stay close tomorrow. Then my response would have been, you're able to stay close tomorrow, or you find you have to move a little bit closer to them than you'd like, but you get close enough that you can start to hear and see things. Right? That's what I should say right there. Then he's like, okay, I'm not super close to Mara. Might take me a bit to move towards her, or her to move towards me if something happens, right? So they've got some more information. But then I would at that point say, roll your dice. Since they know what kind of checks they should be doing, I would hope, they're going to know to roll 2 10s. All right? That's one way of handling it. Another way to handling it is me to lift up a card, tap on the card. I don't say anything. I just show them the number that I want them to roll. That or less. That or better. Depends on the game system, but you guys are getting an idea, right? This game system, it's that number or less. All right? I can do that. I could say maybe they know what they need to roll in general, but I want to let them know that there's a bonus, a plus 10. So I could have it already set up in our pre-session. They've already got notes. It tells them when I say, you easily overhear and can see what they're looking at. They automatically know, oh, that's a plus 10. That's her code for plus 10. Sweet. Rolls the dice. They already know what their thief and their persuasion is. And they know they get to add 10 to that. And so there you go. Now, I can't get too upset at Frontier Space for these game mechanics being in here. It's because they're trying to also teach the 2 things at once. You see what I'm saying? So they got the role playing, the pretending part, and then they got boom, the game mechanics, and then we're gonna do some more role playing, and then boom, game mechanics, more role playing, boom, game mechanics. What I'm trying to get across, and we'll hopefully, in baby steps here with the people we're working with, because we just don't get to meet as often as we'd like. And I'm not the game ref, so how I want to do it and how the other ref wants to do things, it may be 2 different things. We have slightly different styles. I want to go more extreme with one direction right now. He's more middle of the road direction. So, it's where we're at. When it's my turn to lead the game, they're going to have like a little code that says, English terms. So whenever I say this, or whenever you say this, it equals these things in game mechanics. And that'll be our work on thing. Okay? That's what I want to do. I think it makes a better game. And we're working on that in this other game as well. Not the Frontier Space game, but a different game. And we're starting to see some of that actually start to happen. It's just slow because people have to remember, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to. They're learning. All right, so that is how I would approach it, and I would have probably written this up a little bit different, but then it's going to take up more space in the book. So, there you go. What you want to do is think, how, as a player, how can I ask a question, but ask it indirectly? So I'm not going to be asking the referee. I'm going to ask another player. I'm going to ask an NPC, where I'm going to make a statement that tells and it's a statement that tells the referee, I'm looking for more information, without saying, yo, give me some more information. I have a question for you. Okay? As the referee, my job is to just try to disguise the game mechanics as much as possible while still using them. That's my challenge. Okay? So that's what you got to look at is how am I going to do this? I should have a lot of information in front of me about my players, characters. So I always know what they need to do. So I can like show them a card with a number written on it, or I could that's why some people like the target number thing in D20s. If they just have the whole room, everything in that room, secret doors, traps, dodging, saving poison, killing the monster, breaking the doors, whatever. Is if it's all the same target number, all they have to do is say once, roll 15. Everybody already knows their modifiers. They know what dice they have to roll for like a D&D game, style game, which is a D20. And they'll know if they need to roll above or below that, depending on the system they roll. It speeds up everything considerably. So whatever they're doing, they know they need to beat a 15. However beat is described in the game. And people like to roll dice. All right, so let's move on to the examples some more. Referee. They don't look nervous. Their tails rest rock steady as they lean over what appears to be some kind of map stretched out across the table. You try to make out the words, but you only hear them talking about the caves and finding the source. Now he's talking to Valden, right? The DM, the referee. He's explained, and that has just finished Chris's round. Valden is done. Now, in the book, Mara. So now you would make eye contact with Mara. Mara walks up to the bar to see a young human female tending the place. You squeeze in between an Erikai and a human, both rough-looking. Okay, now Mara should respond, the player playing Mara, something. Unfortunately, it's more questions. How rough? Are they armed? Then they have the referee saying, give me a persuasion plus marksman check to see if you can spot any concealed firearms on them. Gonna stop right there. We have the same repeated sort of not optimum role-playing game mechanic situation occurring. Interrogation. Then followed by the game mechanic. So, what Mara should have said is, I'm carefully looking at them, trying to determine if they have any weapons. Okay. That tells me everything I need to know. She wants to know what they look like. She wants to know if they have any weapons. Now, if they just started to learn to play, I probably will have to tell them persuasion plus marksmanship check and, But after they've done that once or a few times, they should start picking up how it goes. But I don't even have to do that. I should know what I'm asking out of them. And I should be able to just say, roll 2 dice. Put up my 2 fingers. And put a card up with the number I want them to hit. So they have Brandy then, doing a persuasion of 60. And the marksmanship is 0, which when you get your first skill level, that's what it makes it. You're no longer a negative. You're now a 0. She rolls a 33, a critical success. Double odds are critical successes in frontier space. Double evens are critical failures. You guys go home and do the math. You can succeed a lot more and you can fail a lot more. Critically. So, Um, just saying. Different game mechanics than what you guys used to with the D20s. And she screams critical success, or it writes critical success here, but it seems like she would say critical success. All right. That's game mechanics. You know, you want to express that some way else. You know, you roll it. We all see it's a critical success. The referee then jumps in. Yes, you notice the Urukai has a collapsible monosword of a custom design tucked in his boot and a gyrojet pistol under his biker vest. To your surprise, the human has the same. You also notice their leathers are the type of synthetic weave you'd expect in ballistic cloth. Can't talk. The bartender asks, "What'll be your fury?" It goes on from here, and then I think they get in a bar brawl. But as you can see, you know, it's okay for the players to be like, yes, I succeeded. Yeah, no, obviously. But you want to verbalize it differently, in much the same way that you want to verbalize the actual real combat differently, you know. And you want run reasons, top 5 role-playing tips besides background stuff. And what it'll come down to is game mechanics that speed up, usually initiative. It usually speeds up combat rolls and hits, and they have all these little tricks depending on the systems, and it speeds us up, speeds that up. Well, that's actually all the tactical worm gaming stuff. It's really not the role-playing stuff. Once in a while, someone will talk about role-playing. Mostly they'll talk about backgrounds, and as I said, backgrounds can serve a purpose. But see how simple that background, those backgrounds were for those characters, yet they gave us so much. So when you look at this stuff, you want to work out some kind of code language with your players. So your players know how to employ a mechanic using a code language. Like in this game, we got destiny points. Destiny points, yes. Kind of like luck points. Or maybe inspiration points. See, they got all these games got different terms, but the idea is you have some extra points you can use to spend in some way that affects the rolls of your dice. So how you do that? Well, you do that by telling the players they've got a code sentence. And they say that code sentence, you, the DM, know that they're spending a point. All right? So, or they might spend a point, depending on how you guys are playing out this game mechanic, how you've glossed it. We're talking about glossing, translating computer coding, game mechanics into regular English. Regular. Excuse me. And that's what you want to do. So I'm going to use D&D now as an example. In D&D, they talk about something being, you know, medium, easy, very easy, you know, hard, very hard, difficult. They'll use words like that. If you go look at the charts, even this book will have some things like that. Gives you an idea what the modifiers are. The trick is use those descriptions instead of the modifier number. It's just saying it's a plus 10. It's now easy. It's now extremely easy, plus 15. You see what I'm saying? Near impossible, you know, negative 60, right? You know, it's the same thing with smaller modifiers. Like in games, let use only like a pluses of 5 or plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. This task requires detail. This task requires focus. You're telling them they're going to have to do something. as you set out to do this task, and so then the player can be in response. I focus down. They can confirm that they want to indeed. I I have a good feeling about this, even though you just told them it was very difficult to do. They're now confirming, yeah, go ahead and spin those points. Make it happen. If it fails, if the roll fails. So you figure out a communication that involves English instead of game mechanics. So you're not limited to this code language, this coding. And then it makes the game, wait, you're still rolling dice. You still know when to roll the dice. And there'll be times, yeah, I'm sure players have to be prompted or timeout has to be called. It's going to happen no matter what you do. It just does. But this will keep it more immersed if you start reading through. And like I said, I can't get mad at people who wrote this book any more than I can get mad at some other people, because mostly people don't think about this stuff. And I can say that because I remember the first time I had an epiphany about RPG. And I said stuff to people and then immediately shut up, because I was like in, I don't know, 9th grade, 8th grade, something like that. Middle school to high school. Based on where I was living, I have an idea of the time frame. And, the term RPG, I don't think tabletop, the TT had been added yet. It was just RPG, I think, was being used a lot now in products and stuff. So and I was playing all kinds of different games. So I noticed RPG, and I don't know, I knew it meant role-playing game. And just for the longest time, as far as I was concerned, it meant ROLL, playing game, like rolling the dice, playing game. Did I understand it was supposed to be ROLE and that's supposed to be playing your character? Yes. Like I tried sharing the joke, and a lot of people didn't think it was funny, but I thought it was valid based on my observations. Because if you play tactical games and you play role-playing games, a lot of times the role-playing games de-evolve into tactical war games, if you will. They're supposed to be like heavy on the role-playing with some rules here, a little bit, not fully even, but with some rules to facilitate this, to figure out outcomes, stuff like that, and how realism you go. You've got a big swing as the game master. Okay. What I noticed then, like now, is even if they start out here equal, they're supposed to be mixed together pretty well. What happens is usually this gets heavier and heavier, and there's reasons for that. Sometimes it goes the other way. All right. And what's funny is when they've gone totally out, my hand's way off the screen, right? They're way out here with the role playing, and they still got dice. It's like, but they're fudging the dice constantly. It's the reason they have a screen is so that nobody can see that the DM is just letting them do whatever they want. No rules, at all. Okay, that's fine. There are games though that have rules that don't have dice. You might want to check those out. I haven't played them, so I can't give a review, but there are people out there who have, and some people really like them. So try those games out. You can change the background and the setting. LARPing. The first time I heard about LARPing, and I think I found out about that when Vampire the Masquerade was popular, which I've got here somewhere. And me, I was just playing it as a regular, tabletop game, and then I found saw a bunch of people came to my job that I had at the time, and they were all dressed up as vampires. And I was like, guys got a party? And they're like, no, we're LARPing. And I'm like, what's that? This is how I find out everything. It's like finding it out on the net is relatively new thing for me. Normally, I'm like completely oblivious to everything, and because I'm doing my own thing, and then I find out, with friends who are also busy, so they're not hanging with the same communities of people, and so then we find out everything like way after it's been going on for a while, whatever that thing is, because we just buying what we need from the store, and we're booking it. Now you can just buy off online, right? So somebody had explained that to me, and I was like, oh, metagaming. Found that out by accident as well. Had to do research on it, because like, what are they talking about? And that was like years ago. That was like probably the first weird term I ever learned outside the normal stuff that's in the game masters and player handbooks. But when I get on the net and try to look up role playing, most of the time I'm getting stuff with some kind of weird terminology from someplace attached to it in the explanations. It's not straightforward English, because like we can't do that for some reason. Please, people, this isn't dumbing it down. It's just keeping it simple and straightforward. I don't need to try to impress people that I might be an intelligent human being with an IQ over 2. If I'm trying to share information, I need to make sure the person I'm sharing with on the other end understands. And if I'm throwing techno jargon, gaming techno jargon, psychological techno jargon, thespian techno jargon, the theater, every bit of techno jargon I can muster into my explanations, not only do they hurt the head after a while, even if you know what everybody's saying, but when the techno jargon is used to explain the techno jargon, then it's just a whole bunch of jargon. And so if somebody really doesn't know what you're talking about, you're not helping them. you're not. All right. So that's one of my, I just watched a video yesterday that I was just like, it sounds like he's reading a thesis paper. You might have written a thesis paper, it occurred to me. So, those are on the net too. I've seen them. So, D&D and its sociological impact on society or something. Fine literature points on the development of D&D through the ages or something. I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff out there. Why college students writing thesis papers with role-playing games at the center? They're probably not hiring you at WotC, okay? I'm just telling you. Look, keep it straightforward. Simple backstories. That helps your role-playing. Complicated backstories do not. If the character's going to end up with a complicated story attached to their name, let that develop out of that simple background and be part of the story that are to come. It's way funner. Way funner. I'm using bad English and everything. It's better. Okay? Try to figure out how to talk to each other, referee and players, without using a whole lot of mathematical language, even though you're doing math. Remember word problems? And how everybody hated them in school? Because you got to take all these words and you got to turn it into a mathematical formula. And by gosh, they always try to trick you in those word formulas. And like nobody could ever seem to do it. And the teacher would get up there and explain. And like you were just supposed to osmosis this, right? And like everybody hated word problems. That's because the teacher didn't know how to do them. I'm going to tell you straight up. Throughout my whole elementary, middle school, high school life, I had teachers who could not do word problems. So you cannot expect them to explain the code, but there is a code to word problems. Once I got told the code in college by the math teacher, who was a mathematician from the Soviet Union, guess what? Word problems stop being a problem. I learned the code. In this case, you're going to do the reverse. You're going to create the code so that you can turn the mathematical formulas that are the game mechanics into word instructions. Because you're not trying to trick the players, and the players aren't trying to trick you. Okay? The word problems are that you get in a math book are a certain percentage of it is word instructions, right? With solve for and some extra non-important information thrown in to confuse you. So we're not going to throw in the extra information to confuse you. You want direct communication, but you want to do it with words. Shh. I have people coming into my house because I have teenagers. Shh. Okay. And so that's what I'm getting at. But yeah, everyone got mad at me for my joke that it's role-playing with 2 L's. When I was younger. And I think even today, people probably get mad about that. But look at what you're doing. And in no way am I saying don't roll dice. You know, I like dice. Also, in Frontier Space, just so you know, the dice are supposed to be rolled out in the open so everybody can see them. Just letting you know it's actually in the rules. So that's what I'm getting at with this stuff. It's not that I'm against background stories. Surprise, surprise. It's not that I'm always for killing the players. Surprise, surprise. You know, even though I talk about death being useful, it's not that I'm for saving them every time either. What I'm for is a good story coming out of their adventure and the players being challenged and having to come up with ways to deal with stuff and helping each other. And, you know, they win by role-playing. It's how you get your experience. It shouldn't just be for killing monsters or just retrieving the treasure, or it should be like a variety of things they get rewarded for. So they can choose different paths, and as long as they're role-playing that path well, they're good. I could go on about this. I got like a whole bunch of different ideas about how to explain why something's happened in certain games the way they do, based on what I've seen over my life, and even how I've played, good and bad, neutral, you know, whatever the time period is. But what you got to learn is how to pretend again, how to pretend, how to play cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, cowboy versus cowboy, Ranger Rick, G.I. Joe, Barbie. Remember back when you were a little kid, playing with your My Little Ponies and whatnot. You had little stories, and you had your teddy bears out, and things happened, and they went on adventures, and you talked, and you made little conversations. You know, pew pew, you're dead, right? You know, and friends all, I'm dead, right? You're out there playing war or whatever. My point being is that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be role-playing. That's role-playing, all that pretend time when you were a kid, when you dressed up like a fireman. It wasn't LARPing, you were pretending, you were imagining. You were role-playing. You were playing a character that you understood from TV or from a book that somebody was reading to you. If it was a really good book, you know, or a book that you read yourself. So, but then you forget how to. So please go listen to some audiobooks. Go listen to some old radio shows. Radio shows are really good. You know what's going on in those shows because of how the scripts are written, i.e. how the characters are presented, how they are role played, even though you can't see a thing. Yeah, there's some special effects, but that's what the referee's for. Where the narrator could be imposed, and they use special sound effects. Instead, the referee will stop. We'll say stuff in a role playing game. Okay. Everybody have a great day. Like, subscribe, comment, and I don't know. Maybe I will do a Monster Monday. I don't know. I want to go spend time with the rest of my family. It's my last day of vacation. So I'll probably pick up Monster Monday next week. There'll be more videos this week, or I'll just do it late this week. So everybody have a great Monday. Happy new federal holiday, Juneteenth. Don't know, it worked. I read some stuff on it. I don't know. Okay. I don't know anybody who knew anything about it until it was made a national holiday. So now we've all been educated on it, including the people it's supposed to be for, who didn't know anything about it. It's a strange world we live in. You would have thought the rollout would have been better on that. Just saying. Anyway, a happy new federal holiday, and everybody, have a great day. I wonder if I got paid for today. It's a federal holiday. Could have happened. Probably didn't. It's probably not in the budget. Anyway, everybody have a good one. Peace, love. Keep rocking your rolls with an E and rolling the dice. And have fun. Have fun. People who say they don't have fun at this, you've got to be having fun on some level. You wouldn't have done it for 20 years. You just don't want to admit it. Whatever it is that you do at your table. Yeah, it's figure out a way to communicate with your players, even if it's just with hand signals. Roll 2 dice. So do that. And you can start small. Just start small, people. Start small. Start with, we're not going to say to hit anymore. Do things like that. Going to use first and third person. and talk to the players about what you want them to do and how to do that. Don't ask me a direct question. Make it indirect. Give them examples. And just let that be the focus of that game. You're not to ask me a question. See if they can do it, right? Have the equivalent of a cuss jar there. You got the little. Every time you ask the team a question, you're dropping a quarter or a buck in there, so that's going to go towards whatever the gaming table fund is. Buying the next game or something, whatever it is. Figure out a way to gradually change your table towards more and more organic language and away from mechanical language. And I think that'll go a long way to improving your role-playing game more than any background story tips. And start figuring out how to disguise, or rather gloss the mechanics into regular English. So They'll work on their code. But you start with one thing. No, none of this interrogation question stuff. Let's start there. Then you move on to how can we say this another way? Let's make our word code so we can write the word problem. And more importantly, there is no word problem because we're not trying to find for X and we're not trying to confuse each other. And it'll be a lot more organic. Think to yourself, how can I make this sound like a radio show? They're on YouTube. Go listen to some radio shows. Pick any kind of Western, sci-fi. There's probably, I know I have around here the radio show for Lord of the Rings. There's all kinds. There's mysteries. So there's like a lot of TV shows started out as radio shows. So you can go back and be like, Twilight Zone? You know? So you can also check them out from the library. Yes. So do that. Take a listen. Start watching old serials. Movies, from 1920s, 30s. Things like that. Try to change your perspective on how, listen to audiobooks on how to communicate. And ask yourself, would it be really cool in the middle of the action scene if somebody said, okay, everybody, now we need to do some math on our charts. You're going to be like, no, that's not cool. Did John Wick shoot him or not? Right? So that's what I'm getting at. And I'm going to get off this now because I'll just ramble on forever this. But yeah, rock your role playing, roll them dice. But know the difference of what you're doing. Know the difference. Like, subscribe, comment. Tell me I'm wrong. Say I make bad jokes. But yeah, are you role playing or are you role playing? Which are you doing? Have a great day. Bye.